Good evening and welcome to the Midweek Reboot. My name is Mayan and I'm really happy to have you on board. This is your time to just relax, reflect, take stock of the week, and plan and course correct where needs be. So, thank you for coming in and joining me. Tonight's a bit personal. I'm going to have fewer questions, but I would like you to reflect a little bit more. So, thank you for being here with me. Here's the backdrop to this live. For most of my career, staying in the background was the job. As a consultant, I would show up. My role is to make the client shine. I would think through things, I would steer, I would plan, I would even prep the client accordingly. And then I would step back. And this was not as a matter of modesty. That's the value that I was paid for as a consultant, to always make my client shine. So I was what you'd call a backbencher, a person in the back who would do the work but not be recognized for it. It would be my client that would be recognized for it. So tonight, it's not about stop staying in the background, because sometimes, like as I said in this scenario, as a consultant, it's required of me to make my client shine. And that's exactly right. But sometimes it's not good where it becomes a habit and you don't take the recognition that you deserve. And you stop, the habit has become so much a part of you that you don't do anything else besides being a backbencher. So, the topic today is the invisible contributor, why you do the work but you don't get seen. This happens slowly and it's not dramatic, it's not deliberate. But as I said, habits form over time. You might get praised for not needing the spotlight, but you do the work. And getting that praise makes you feel good. So you do it again. And that becomes habitual. It becomes who you are. You're the person who delivers, but you don't get recognized for it. And some of the things that we might be feeding ourselves is my work speaks for me, and my work speaks for itself. So I don't need it. I am not political, so I will do what's required and that's it. I don't need the credit. I don't need that recognition. And these are some of the things that we feed ourselves as to why we don't want that recognition, why we don't want to be seen. My question to you is, do you have underplaying yourself and your contribution? And why do you do that? Pop it into the comments. Do you have the habit of underplaying yourself and the contribution that you make? And why do you possibly do that? I'll just wait for some responses. As welcome, Yesh. She says, as I'm also a consultant, same situation as you. Kelisha, welcome. Kelisha says, I do underplay it. Sometimes think I don't make a big difference as someone might make it out to seem. And Yesh goes on to say, but internally, I try to assert my contributions. So let's just reflect on those responses. Yes, as a consultant, there's times where you have to make the client shine. But there's times, and I can also myself, there's times where it's a habit where I don't take the recognition. I become modest about my contribution. And if you're modest about your contribution, then you're actually doing yourself a disservice because your contribution allows you to be seen, puts you in the right rooms, puts you in the right projects. So don't always defer your recognition to somebody else. Allow yourself to take that recognition. Then for Kalisha's response, she underplays it. Sometimes thinks she doesn't make a big difference as someone might make it out to seem. By you doing that as well, Kalisha, you're also underplaying and belittling what somebody else might be the recognition that they're giving you. So also, if they're giving you that recognition, take it in good faith and look to yourself. Is there a Are you undermining yourself and your worth? You think that's less, but in the eyes of the person that's receiving it, it might be something big. So take it for what it's worth. Kalisha goes on to say, oh, I needed to hear this. Thank you. And that's great. Also, when I looked at this topic, the reason why I thought let's do this is because one works for you as a consultant where you put your client first. But the other hand, where you don't allow yourself to be seen, that's taking away from you. And stick with me because I'm going to talk about why being seen is so important and claiming that recognition is so important in the AI driven era. And you need to also realize the worth that you're bringing in. Allow yourself to be recognized. I'm not sure about yourselves, but I notice people can't take a compliment easily as well. They would deflect from the compliment. So what we need to do is try and also be comfortable in taking recognition, in taking the compliment. So back to thank you for those responses. The cost. What is the cost of who gets seen versus who is capable? The person who speaks up is seen as most capable, and you've come across those people. They can speak a good story, but in terms of delivery, they're really weak. But they've got the gift of the gab. They can speak and make you convinced that this is what they did. They can easily take in the work that you might have prepared and speak about it so confidently as if they did it. Now, have you come across those people? Drop it into the chat where people speak so confidently, they're able to absorb and they're like a sponge they can take in, and what they give back is as if it's theirs, but it's not. So the person who speaks up is seen as most capable, not the one who did the work. You might be the backbencher, the person who's actually done the work, but you don't get seen for that, because capability that nobody sees or hears might not as well exist because nobody knows. Personally, this cost me previously in one of my jobs a promotion because I was always the backbencher. I was the person that said, my work will speak for me. But also, you must speak for the work that you've done. You must claim the work that you've done. I'm not saying be arrogant. There's a way that you can do it without being arrogant. Yesh says, for sure, she's come across such people. The people who speak and they own the work that's not really theirs. What do you think it costed you when others take the credit for what you have done? Put it into the comments, into the chat. What do you think it costed you when others take the credit for what you have done? And whilst you put in those comments, I will read some of the other responses over here. Yesh goes on to say, but when I was a worker, I was highly competitive to climb the ladder, thus worked in my favor and I climbed. So I'm assuming you're also saying that you claimed that recognition that you deserved and that allowed you to climb the corporate ladder when you was a permanent. That's what I'm reading into this. And for those times you didn't claim the credit, what did that cost you? Yesh confirms, yes, it did. So and she's living example of when you claim the credit, when you take that recognition that you deserve, it's not claiming another person's spot that allowed her to excel and climb up the corporate ladder. Kelisha responds, it definitely takes the recognition, and one wouldn't get seen for the hard work they put in. And in this day and age, it's about you making yourself known for what you can deliver. Because how there's so many people out in the job market. How are you going to distinguish yourself from other people as consultants, as permanent? What are you going to do to distinguish yourself from the others? And as I said, the capability that nobody knows about, it's not spoken about, it's not in clear view, then it's like it doesn't exist. So there's two short stories that I'd like to share with you. I shared this in one of possibly my videos or one of the other lives, but I think it's really applicable here, where I was in a grouping of people. I knew the answer when the presenter asked the question, I knew the answer. I whispered it to myself and to the person next to me. The person next to me heard my response and then said it out louder and got the credit for it. How many times have we done that? Where we say it out to ourselves or say it in our minds, we have the right answer, but we don't have the confidence in that moment to say it out loud. And here, the other person got the credit. Then there's the other story that I'd like to compare it with. There was a senior that I worked with, my mentor, in the early 2000s. He said very little, but when he said something, the room stopped and they went silent and they listened to him, because when they knew when he they knew that when he spoke, he's going to say something really profound. So they took notice of what he was saying. The difference is his silence was strategy. When he was going to speak, it was going to be something that will make others listen. But with mine was a habit, something that I taught myself. Say to yourself, if you're not really sure, don't put yourself out there. And by doing that, a lot of the times we might have the answers, but we don't put ourselves out there because we worry about what would the other person think. Also, brought up in a society where if you blow your own horn, so to speak, you're seen as arrogant. You must find a way of getting of your of what you do to speak for you without arrogance, and you can do it without arrogance. Your tone when you introduce something, how you say it, how you position it, is very important. Have you come across those people who are quiet, and when they speak, they say something profound? Have you come across those types of people in your life? You can put it down into the chat. It's important to identify what mode does the room call for. It's not about becoming loud. It's about telling the difference between a room that needs background and the one that needs your voice. So when you need to be in the background, you need to identify when that's required. But when it needs your voice, you must be confident in yourself and break habit and allow yourself to voice what you're saying. So there's three quick tests. Whose room is this? If it's your client's moment, then you do everything in your ability to make the client shine. And that's what I do. You do whatever, and you prep them accordingly as well. So then the client shines. And that's the right time for you to be in the background. Is this about the second test is this about credit or delivery? If only you know the work happened, then there's no visibility around it. Then that's a problem. Then that's your habit getting in the way. That's your modesty getting in the way. And the third test is if you say nothing, who benefits? And is it ever me? Is it yourself? Would you benefit by saying nothing? Or is it taking away from you? So you need to determine what is the cost of you saying nothing. My challenge to you for this week is just notice. I want you to just notice one moment you stayed quiet about your own contribution. You don't need to fix it, you don't need to do anything. Just notice and see if you've got a habit of doing that. Drop it into the chat. What prevents you from speaking up and owning a piece of work? What is it within you that prevents you from speaking up and owning a piece of work? And as you put in your comments, yes, she agreed that she's come across people who are quiet but are profound when they do speak. Kelisha, yes, I definitely have. And you must notice when those people speak, they own the room. They have this pull to themselves where when they speak, everybody notices. To my question of what prevents you from speaking up, owning a piece of work, Yesh says, in the corporate world, modesty doesn't get you anywhere. But also, you can't blow your own horn unnecessarily and without substance. It's a fine balance, I think. Absolutely, yes. That is a fine balance. And therefore, you can't be arrogant because also, how is it perceived? If you're owning a piece of work, you can position it as this is how I thought through the problem, as opposed to just talking about the outcomes. You can take them through the process of your thinking. So, in doing so, you're owning up to the piece of work that you're doing. It's not that here, there's the report. It's about how you thought through a certain piece of work. I'm not sure if that might also work for you. Kelisha says, I guess I'm scared of the spotlight sometimes. And here you should pause, Kelisha, and ask yourself, why are you scared of the spotlight sometimes? And if you have done a piece of work, that shows that you can deliver. Are you worried about the additional work that might come your way that you might not be able to do? So sit with that question for the next couple of days as well, as to why would you be scared to own the spotlight? What is it in you that prevents that? And blowing your own horn, Yesh, in terms of, you can't do it unnecessarily, because yes, it comes, I've seen those people as well. Have you? Where they come across as really arrogant, and you think it's like all hot air, hot air, because they blow their own horn, but from a delivery perspective, it's really they're quite thin from a delivery perspective. And here's the kicker. We're in an AI driven world. How do you stand out in an AI driven world? And also the job market, there's so many people that can do what you do. So remember what I said earlier? It's about distinguishing yourself. How do you distinguish yourself? This is the reality. AI, it produces competent work, and it can do work even better than you can. So, competence is now the baseline, not the differentiator. So, you need to find what differentiates you. And the good news is, in terms of AI can't do your judgment. It can't take over your humanity. It can't read the room, the context. It can produce the work, but there's these human qualities that's important, and that's where you can own it. AI can write a report. It can help you to think through a report. It can help you put it together, but you must be able to understand what this report is saying so that you can share it with your audience. You can make it applicable to their scenario. Yesh says, at the end of the day, they will keep coming back to you if you can deliver well. That's actually more rare than we realize. But if you need to use your delivery record to push yourself forward and up, but you need to use your delivery record to push yourself forward and up. And yes, delivery speaks for itself, but own it as well, so that you if there's two people that can do the same piece of work, they must always choose you, because you bring something different to the party than the other person. And I do agree, delivery, it goes a long way. but own the delivery as well, especially if it costs you. Just getting back to the AI driven world, so AI can do a lot of things, but you need to know where you can be the differentiator. So here are four principles. The first principle: show your thinking, not just your output. So the action over here is add one line. I went this way because. So when you're communicating the output, you need to tell the story about how you went through the process, not just this is the outcome or this is the output. Principle two: claim the human layer, because AI can do a lot of things, but the human layer is your differentiator. So the action there is name what others miss. The data says X, but knowing this team, I'd caution you, or I'd be cautious to do ABC. So here again, it's about positioning. You take the data, this is the data, this is what AI is saying, but this is how I interpret it. This is how you need to operate, or this is what you should take from it. So be able to be the interpreter from what AI is saying and how it impacts your piece of work, your client. Then there's principle three: narrate your contribution without apology. So this is what the action will look like. Swap out if it got done. Swap out it got done for here's what I did and what I learned. So you're talking about the process, and that's what I alluded to earlier. Talk about the process. Don't just give in a piece of work. Talk about the thinking behind it. And principle four: be the one who asks the better question. So the action over there is ask, are we even solving the right problem? So be that voice in the room that spins things on its head. That if things are presented, question it and ask the right question and ask the question. For example, are we solving for the right problem? So it's by you making your voice heard that also allows you to be the differentiator instead of just taking things in. This reminds me of it is said that when you go to a meeting, go prepared to ask a question or to contribute something. Don't just go to a meeting and be quiet, because when you're quiet, then the question is, why are you even there? Be ready to respond to something, be ready to contribute, be ready to ask a question. And I've done a live as well previously where sometimes you go blank, you can't think on your feet. And that's fine. Know what the agenda is about. Do the pre reading of the information, the agenda, the pack that has been sent to you, and you can prepare a couple of questions. If it's covered, you don't need to ask those questions. But if it's not, ask another question. Listen carefully so you can ask the right questions. And this here makes you relevant. It makes you a differentiate. It allows you to be the differentiator and be different from others. Do you think these four principles would work? Which one would you want to try out maybe in the coming week? The four principles: show your thinking, not just the output. Principle two: claim the human layer. Principle three: narrate your contribution without apology. And principle four: be the one who asks the better question. So, of those four, which one would you actually use in your next meeting or your next engagement with somebody? What do you think? Which would be easier for you? Pick one. And as you do that, if you have any questions, you can pop that into the chats. Kelisha says principle 3 is narrate your contribution without apology. That's great, Kelisha. Yesh says, all great principles, thanks. I will try and incorporate them, and next meeting going to try that out. That's perfect. If you can take one nugget from this live, then my job is done. And you spend time with me, and I really do appreciate you coming here, spending your 1 hour with me, or whatever time we do have for the live. I appreciate that. Also, what I want out of this live for you is you take one of the nuggets and you run with it so that it changes something in your life as well. So, where am I in terms of this topic where you're the invisible contributor? I started by saying I am a consultant. I need to make my client shine. And that's how I've done it over the years. But then it also costed me when I needed to be showcasing the work that I've done. I just thought my work will speak on my behalf. But there's times you have to own it. There's times you have to put it out there that you've done this work. And as I said, do it by taking them through the process of how you thought it through, because that will show that you are the owner of that piece of work. And to Yesh's point about blowing your own horn, and I say it again, it's not about us being arrogant. We don't want to be like those people we scoff at where they're arrogant and we don't like it. It's in poor taste. So you don't want to be that person. Do it with humility, but you can still do it. The problem with most of us, I use the word modest. We're taught to be modest. You do it, but you keep quiet, and and that's how our conditioning has been. We need to unlearn some of those bad habits because modesty doesn't get us anywhere. Remember, if you're capable but you're quiet and you don't, and it's that capability is silent, it's not going to get out of that room. It's not going to it's not going to be known to people who need to know about it. I'm not sure if you've got any questions related to this topic or any other topics. You can put it into the chat because can you believe we're close to the end? And whilst you're at it as well, are there any topics that you'd like me to cover in future lives or in future videos? Please also drop that into the chat. Yesh asks a good question. What if an employee has a boss that always takes credit? This, yeah. And that is a real situation where sometimes you you have the situation where your boss takes the credit. There's nothing that you can do about that. Or if you're sending something, you can indicate this is what I've done. Or when you're presenting something, this is how I thought it through. Yes, there's people that will always want to take the credit. There's people who do take the credit, but you need to find ways, innovative ways when you're presenting. This is how I thought about it, and this was the result. When you're sending an email, right? This is this is the work that I've done. And yes, you'll have the case where your boss takes the credit and nothing much can be done about it. But when you do have that platform, you can bring out what you how you thought this through, and therefore people will know that it's your piece of work. You raise an important question. By your question, you raise an important point as well. As people that engage with other people, you have people in your teams. How do you give them credit? And you might very well have a boss, but you are the senior to somebody else, or you might be a team member with somebody else. Do you take the credit, or do you include their name in an email? So thanks to so and so person for providing the input to me. So in that way you're able to recognize people. So also be um, cognizant of that, as to recognizing people in your team. Kelisha says, thank you for the live, was super insightful. I'm glad it was, Kelisha. And it goes back to why I chose this topic. Because I noticed that some high performers, they never take the spotlight. Like yourself, Kelisha, you said you're scared of taking the spotlight. You're a high performer, but what prevents you from taking that spotlight? If you don't own the space, somebody else is going to own that space. And don't let that happen to you. Again, I say there's no need to be arrogant, but be ready for the recognition for the hard work that you do. Be ready to take the compliments. Don't deflect the compliment. Don't defer the compliment. I see this often as well, where somebody compliments you and you deflect it to somebody else. Oh, but this person did it. Or you defer it. So you don't deflect from the compliment. Learn to sit in the compliment and be comfortable in it and say thank you. And that's it. You don't have to fight for the spotlight. You need to know when the room needs your voice and give it without waiting for permission. Especially now when we are in this AI driven world, when the job market is so full of people that are capable. How are you going to stand out? Thank you for joining me. Remember, I go live on a Wednesday for the midweek reboot at 8 o'clock South African time. There's also videos on a Monday and Friday. Please also catch that and subscribe if you haven't subscribed as yet. Thank you for sitting with me. It's also something that's uncomfortable, but it's when we get to learn about ourselves, those hidden habits that control us, there's some unlearning that we need to do as well. So sit with those questions, think about it, see what you can course correct if needs be. Have a great week further, and always remember you matter.